Meeting is being recorded. This is the meeting of the SEBA Board of Directors. And this is our December 6, 2022 regular board meeting. And I'd like to recognize that currently the board members with us are Mary Navas, Gershom Torres, Javier Gonzalez, and Michael Jones. And then we have some guests, Raquel Arenas Humphrey and Adriana Morales, and Mr. School Scout. And I'm not sure who Mr. School Scout is. Can you introduce yourself? I guess not. So we will proceed. And that takes care of recording attendance. Opening items. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Passed. All right. This is now an opportunity for public comment on the agenda. And public comment is a time for a guest or anybody basically to address the board on an item that is not on the agenda. So is there anybody that would like to address the board on an item that is not on the agenda? Hearing nothing, we will then proceed to reports, and the head of school report by Mr. Josh Ripp.
Okay. Can you see my screen okay?
Yes.
All
I've
right.
never seen the top of it.
Really? You should be able to see, it should say head of school update, December 6th.
I see that.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so going back to our SEBA org goals, we postponed our retreat to the spring, in part because of the upcoming city council meeting that we're still waiting to hear a date for. But so we're just using our org goals continued from last year, and we had those set into different areas, including governance, finance, facilities, HR, academic programs, California dashboard. So today we'll be touching on our annual budget, and Paul will be joining us shortly from DMS along with Ken. We anticipated having the audit due today, but the auditors, CLA, said that they are going to have to delay the submission of that. And so there's a letter there in that spot, and I don't know when the audit will be ready, but I'll let you all know the moment it is ready. And then the other item that I'm going to talk about today is human resources and teacher turnover and admin turnover, positions filled and vacancies, comparing last year and this year. So with that, let's get started. So SEBA attendance compared. So over here on the left-hand column, we have the 4 quarters of SEBA. As you know, we're year-round school, so we have a week or 2 weeks or up to 4 weeks between each of the quarters. And I've got our average daily attendance, that's ADA, of 21-22 compared to 22-23. So if we look at Q1 compared of last year to Q1 this year, we see there's a drop off of about 5 students. We had a lot of students transfer out at the start of this school year that normally would have transferred last year had we not had all the COVID upheaval. So it seemed like it was just kind of a continuation of that. We were able to quickly go to our waiting lists and find people to fill those spots. But in the interim, our enrollment was down slightly. So we can see that reflected in the 5 down this quarter. In the second quarter, which is the current quarter we're in, we can see it's about 12 to 13 below what it was last year. And looking at the data, it seems like a lot of that's due to the cold and flu season that's going around, RSV. We've seen that in the news. And so people are being out, not as long as they were for COVID in previous years, but still it's going around and people are missing a lot of school for that reason. So we can see that ADA there. Going over to the next two columns, we can see enrollment for 21-22, and we can compare that to 22-23. Again, 504 in Q1, and we bumped back up to 510 enrollment for Q2. This is a rolling average compared to 519. So we're slightly below where we were at the end of Q2 last year, but we are above where we were at Q4 last year, which was 507. So one thing we'll be talking about over winter break is whether to try to increase that number again or not. There's another number of impacts and considerations that we have to go through before we determine whether we want to go and enroll more students to SABA. And then finally, the percentage present, and this is where you can really see the impact to some of the flu going around, is we see our percentage present was above what it was last year for Q1, so 95 to 96, about the same. And then we see a little bit of a drop off in Q2, 96, drop down to 93. I'm hoping that we just kind of got the sickness and people being ill early this year. And we saw in Q3 last year, it dropped down to 92. And I'm hoping our Q3 this year will be a little bit ahead of that. But that's where we're at in terms of attendance this year compared to last year.
So Josh, I have a quick question. When you say enrollment, because kids are whole numbers, so I'm trying to figure out what you mean by that enrollment.
It's an, oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, it's an average over a period of days. And so,
Okay.
yeah.
Got it.
Other questions?
Josh, could you introduce Raquel and Adriana so we know what their roles are? I'm assuming they're school staff.
Yes. So Raquel is our parent engagement coordinator, and she's also taken over the role of board secretary since
Yay.
Daniel departed. So she'll be joining us at the board meetings to take minutes regularly. And then Adriana is our school counselor, and she'll be presenting a report right after this.
So we don't have a replacement for Daniel yet?
Well, Raquel is the replacement.
Oh, so does Raquel do the financial stuff also?
Great question. Hold on to that question and we'll come back to it.
All right. Well, welcome to both Raquel and Adriana. It's great having you here.
Thank you.
Okay, so next up, we take a look at HR, which is another SABA organizational goal area. The metrics we discussed the previous year were these 5. Today, we're going to take a look at admin turnover and teacher turnover. And so the goal was to get below 15% annually. So those are the two numbers, two metrics I'm going to present on here in this next part of my presentation. So here we can see our teacher turnover going back to 16-17. And it's been pretty consistent. There's typically 30 to 31 teachers each year, and there's typically 7 to 9 teachers who depart at the end of each year. And when you look at 21-22, the number spiked up to 12. So that was 4 to 5 more than what we've had in the previous 5 years. And I think when I reflect on that year, we had about 4 teachers who started with us in July and left right away. And so if you were to take out those 4 teachers there, we'd be back at 8, which would be more consistent with what we've seen in the previous years. I think part of that was interviewing and offering positions online because we were still coming out of COVID at the end of last year or the previous year when we were giving out offers. But this year, we've had great success. We only have lost 1 teacher out of 31, so 3% turnover so far. Obviously, when teachers move, it's usually in the spring semester. So, we'll see how this spring semester goes. But that's where we're at this year. In terms of admin support staff, again, we saw a lower rate in 21-22, 7 of 26.5. And then this year, we're very low. We're 2 of 24 admin support staff positions have left. So just at 8%, which is significantly lower than what we've seen previous years. Also, just like teachers, oftentimes people finish out their annual work agreement and then move on to a different position in the subsequent year. And so that's when we'll see those numbers start to tick upwards.
So Josh, on that staff side, over the years, you've had a high of 36 staff in 2021.
Mhm.
And this year you have 24, so that's 12. So what is that attrition attributed to?
Yeah, great question. So the 2021 school year, we had classroom supervisors. This was kind of in the hybrid year of COVID, where we'd have some people in the building, some teachers online. And so we needed to increase the number of staff we had on site. So that's part of the decrease. But even if you go back to even previous years, we see 35, 31, 34. We have less interns than we've had in previous years. And so that's the other reason that our staff numbers are lower.
Thank you.
Mhm. Other questions?
Going back to the previous slide having to do with the students and the enrollment, do you foresee, well, number one, do you see going to the wait list to bring in new students, or are you going to wait until after the new year and the meeting with the city council to decide how to proceed?
I think if we're going to enroll students, we try to do it right at the start of the spring semester. We still don't know when that city council meeting is going to take place. You know, it could be January, February, it could be not until March. We're hoping it's sooner rather than later. But I think in terms of enrollment, we'd probably try to press on that earlier. We have not taken a close look at who and what grade levels we'd bring on if we did go that route.
All right, thanks.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so Director of Finance and Operations, we have not replaced that position. The substitute teacher we have that left, we did replace it, that position, and then we had a middle school social studies teacher who left, and that position was also replaced with another middle school social studies teacher. Current openings that we have posted on EdJoin are school psychologists. We've had this open for a while, just kind of waiting for the right candidate. And then track and field coach for our high school interscholastic team.
Okay, so quick question, Director of Finance and Operations, it says not replaced. Does that mean you're not replacing them or just not been replaced?
We had it posted for a while, had a few interviews. I was not happy with the applicants that we had. So at this time we pulled the position. We might explore reposting that in the springtime. In the interim, we've kind of divvied up the responsibilities among other staff, and it's seemingly worked out well. We've definitely hit a few road bumps along the way, but I think overall we're doing reasonably well. So that's where we're at with that.
Thank you.
Mhm. Okay, and then just to wrap up here, SABA strategies to reduce turnover. We're recruiting year round. We've had a paid mentor mentee stipend this year that I think has paid some dividends. We're providing in-person visits, which seems like an obvious answer to recruiting pre-COVID, but now that post-COVID, we want to get back into having everybody be on site a few times before they come here to work full-time. Academic calendar and year-round schedule can be really appealing to staff members. Spell schedule and length of workday can be appealing for our staff. We give meaningful coaching and feedback, finding the right fit for the position, developing teaching and leadership pathways internally, detailed professionally created curriculum, and then competitive compensation are strategies to reduce our turnover. Far this year, it's working well. So we'll see how this goes in the future. And then recruiting practices, we're posting on EdJoin. We've connected with CSUMB. We'll participate in spring recruiting fairs through UCSC and CSUMB. And then we always depend on word of mouth. We have looked at LinkedIn for recruitment of staff outside of education. And then we've collaborated with the Santa Cruz County Office of Education on recruitment strategies as well. So that is my head of school report. Any other questions before we wrap up? Okay.
So in your head of school report, look at this. Now we're going to talk about the staffing report later on.
Well, we talked about staffing in
On
there.
this. Well, the question I have is, though nobody wants to think about it, there exists the possibility that the city council will turn down our zoning request. And I was wondering what your ideas or strategies are for reassuring both school families as well as staff in this period of uncertainty. Because if people, begin to believe that we're not going to be approved and that the SABA is going to have to close, that will be a very disruptive event.
So we've had lots of communication around this. We talk about it regularly at School Site Council. We send out letters each time there's been an update, whether it's a public meeting with the city council or some of the city of Watsonville staff. We've had town halls about it. So I feel like everyone's well aware of the situation and what's at stake. And everyone also is aware that we're awaiting a city council meeting for SABA to be agendized, and specifically our zoning request. And we just don't have a specific date yet. And I think, I always send a letter home with our report cards at the end of the semester, and I'll probably remind families of that again in that letter that I sent home with the report cards.
All right. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Other questions? All right, Michael, you want to go on to the next item?
Sure. Now we have a report on social emotional counseling, and I figure that's going to be Ms. Morales. So please, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So thank you for allowing us the time to present about our counseling department for the social emotional. Mr. Rip, can you? There you go. Thank you. So these are the counseling services that we are offering at SABA for social emotional. We have the one-on-one counseling, which is individual counseling. As where individual counseling, we set up goals for the students that they want to work on. And we monitor those goals as we're checking in with them. We use solution focus counseling techniques. We use motivational interviewing, ripple effects, depending on what is the best fit for the student's need. We also started towards the end of last school year, so the second semester of the school year, we started the initiative of Kindness Wednesday, which is open to all our scholars during middle school lunch. We have different activities to engage our scholars to come and hang out with us during school. We put out some tables in the front of the school, and that has been very successful. We have also an after school club that is called the Kindness Club, and we have our faithful group of students that are always looking forward to what is the next activity. So that's really warms my heart to know that the students really look forward to this. Quick note, if we change the date for any reason that it's not on Kindness Wednesday, our scholars will be like, it's not Wednesday today, like what happened? So they know that on Wednesday is when we come out and we just get to spend that time with them, and we get to connect with them in a different level other than just like in our offices or in the school. So Kindness Wednesday has really kicked off, and Kindness Club as well. We also have college and career readiness, which we offer college application support for our seniors. We offer FAFSA support. So we set up some time for them to do their applications. So we block out our calendars and let our families know that these are this day will be open for them to come in, so we can provide that support. And with that, we bring in the afternoons, because we know most of our parents, they're working throughout the day. So we bring in Cabrillo so they can support us with when we have our bigger rush coming in the evening, to provide that support for the FAFSA. And we have parent meetings. The parents meetings range from college knowledge to any particular topic that we find that it's interesting to our families, or that we should make our families aware of what's going on in our community, or what's going on in that we see the need within our scholars. We are constantly doing transcript analysis to make sure that our scholars are on track, and to figure out how best we can support them to meet their graduation requirements. We also, when doing the transcript analysis, we determine which scholars will be participating in our credit recovery. Motivation or interviewing is another technique that I talked about in our one-on-one counseling. This motivational interviewing can be used in a group setting or individual. And again, it's all depending on what is the best suit for the student at the time. And motivational interviewing is an approach that is student-centered based, and it's pretty much supporting them to change the way that they're thinking, and kind of give them the tools that they need at the time to start making those positive changes to achieving whatever that goal can be. And it could be academic, or it could be social emotional, or it could be a combination of both.
I have a quick question, if you don't mind. Does all of your scholars, senior scholars, fill out the FAFSA?
Yes.
Okay.
I think we have about I think this year we had the highest rate of completion.
Because I thought there was some type of state rule that said that they all have to apply. Is that?
Yeah, this
Okay.
school year, it's a school state that all seniors have to apply for or fill out their financial application. So this is why this year we had a higher rate for FAFSA applications.
Thank you.
And is FAFSA financial aid,
Yes.
I'm assuming? Okay. Question I have is, so it sounds like you're describing both social, emotional, as well as academic counseling here. How many staff are involved in that?
So currently it's two of us. It's Ms. Leonora and myself.
And I know we're all concerned about the incidents that took place last week with the two students. When something serious of that nature happens, can you describe the process that is undertaken to address their needs?
Yes. Mr. Rip, if we can go to the next slide, that's
You got it.
on our next slide. So it's on our suicide intervention. So Ms. Leonora and I, when something like this happens, we went to the mental health first aid training. So in that training, it gave us more tools to use when a student is in crisis. There is a form that we go by to check in with the student, and we ask some very uncomfortable and difficult questions to determine the level of suicide ideation. If the student is flagged as high, that's when we would call in our outside services, which is MERDI, and they're clinicians that would determine if the student needs to be taken to a hospital for more further care. If the student is just having thoughts and there is no plan, then we create what's called a safety plan, and it's what's going to keep them safe. We, at any time that a student does communicate to us that they are having thoughts of suicide, we use this form to determine again the level, and we do communicate to parents that we have to do an assessment for the students, so they are aware that their scholars are having these thoughts, and we also offer other resources. If the student does not have an active plan, then we would do a referral to either Encompass or PBSUSD to provide therapy for the student for their needs. So it's at the end of our intervention, we kind of determine what would be the best service for the student.
Thank you.
So I want to commend the counselors. They've been very busy this year following up on, we have an email filter that captures a lot of items that might be considered suicide ideation, as well as sometimes people just come to their office to express that, and they've been very busy and very detailed in following up with each of these students. They're doing an outstanding job this year, both Adriana and Anna.
Great.
And so jumping back to our other support services that we offer is a Y-Try, which is again, can be used in a group setting or individual, again, depending on what is the best, what is the best situation for the student, if it's group or individual. And the Y-Try is teaches critical thinking skills, again, to kind of reemphasize to, for example, like, why do we go to school, and like, why do we make certain decisions, to kind of connect those skills as to how important it is to make wiser decisions, or how, our homework counts. So it also creates building resiliency and creating healthy relationships with not just their peers, but with staff members or parents. So that way they can, again, have those skills, those critical skills that are needed to make those important decisions that can be very pivotal at certain ages. Any questions about any of what I just went over?
Yeah, one question I have is the Y-Try curriculum. How does that come packaged? Is that something that you were Anna were trained in, or is it a program that you buy? How does it come to the school?
Yes, so it was a program that was bought through the school, and we were trained over the summer. It was a 16-hour training for us to be able to be instructors and provide this program for our scholars.
So then this is a new program starting this year, or did it replace another one? Or
No, we started using this. We started using this program since last school year. So our training,
got it.
our further training was more in depth over the summer. We did get us a training during last spring break, just to kind of do an introduction to it. And we started slowly using it last school year, and now we're using it more this school year.
Great, thank you.
One thing we see, generally speaking, among many students, is this kind of ambivalence and hesitation to really engage in academics. And I feel when we talked about the different programs available, Y-Try seemed to hit the mark and really trying to hook the students and make them see why all of their actions have consequences and why it's important to try their best every day. But again, I want to commend the counselors and our director of MTSS for getting this up and running. And while we've got smaller enrollment now, I think we can continue to expand this as we move forward and become better practitioners of it.
So when do you engage with the scholars? Is it during the school day? Is there a certain period during the school day that perhaps this happens? How does that look?
Yeah, so currently I have a group of 9 scholars, and they're 8th graders, and we're meeting on Mondays during, depend if it's A day or B day, we're meeting early in the morning for about 40-45 minutes.
Okay, great, thank you.
Okay,
Any other questions? And these are our counseling referrals that we have, and this is only for semester 1. So for high school, we have 30 referrals, and that's for social emotional. And then for middle school, we have 34. And pretty much our role is to kind of be the liaisons between the parents, the teachers, admin, and other support staff at SEBA. And our goal is to make sure that our students are well supported in whatever area they need. Again, like I had mentioned before, when we're talking about, or when we're looking into what parent meetings we're going to be having, we always like to kind of see what are referrals that are coming in for. If it's for suicide ideation, then we would contact our outside agencies that have presentations more in depth for our parents about like what to look for when our students are dealing with that kind of suicide ideation, or if it's some bullying, or if it's academics, then we'll kind of see what is the best presentation that we would be hosting for those for our families. And group counseling, well, it's like the White Tribe motivational interviewing, or if it's anything that's needed, like last school year, I had a couple of 6th grade girls that were really struggling with friendships, and before the end of our winter break, we had a couple of sessions to kind of work on those relationship skills that they were lacking. Any other questions?
All right, well, thank you very much for your informative presentation. And hearing no other questions, we will now move to the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda, or is there anything on the consent agenda that somebody wishes to discuss? Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Thank you, Mary. Is there a second?
I second.
All those in favor of approving the consent agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those, any opposed? So the 4 board members, it was unanimous, and motion to approve the consent agenda passes. All right. Now we go on to the what am I looking at here?
first interim budget.
First dinner.
Well, that's why I was getting confused. I got that page twice. Okay, the first interim budget, and turning it over to Mr. Corey.
Good evening, board members.
Good evening.
Good evening.
What we have here in front of us is the first interim budget revision, the first of 2 mandatory budget revisions that will be filed with your authorizer. Also included are the first 4 months of the year, October 31 year-to-date actual. There is a summary analysis that gives some of the changes. Let me walk you through the big picture items that are important to note. So if we can scroll down to the more detailed, we'll stop at the summary tab here real quick. One more page.
On my screen, it says first interim budget summary analysis. Is that what you want?
Yeah, now I want to see the summary numbers. I'm sorry. That's there if they wanted to read that ahead of time, but what I want to do is I want to just highlight some things here.
Got it.
So what we have here, the first column is the original budget that was approved by the board in June. Then our year-to-date actuals through October, 33% of the year is completed, and then the first interim budget. So first change to note is we've increased the projected enrollment by 4. And the ADA went up by 9. I think there's a different ADA rate we were using based on what's actually happening at the school this year. So overall revenues went up $2,063,000. I'm going to get into that in a bit with some specific details. And on the corresponding expenditure side, we're looking at an increase of 149,391. Regardless, you will end up with a surplus of 2,035,595. And before we get excited, I just want to explain how there's a big chunk of revenue that is one-time in nature, that is restricted, and you have until 2028 to fully encumber those funds. So if we can scroll down to the more detailed tab, the next page, we'll stop at revenues here. Okay, so, and some of this I think I presented in August, some of the initial changes of the past state legislated budget versus what we had done originally in June. But just to touch on it, if you look at the total general purpose entitlement, that's LCFF, EPA, and in lieu property tax, your main unrestricted funding, it increased by $500,000. Now, part of that is the increase in ADA. Part of that is also the increased COLA. The actual COLA that was passed by the state was 12.84%. But I want to point out the third line down, which says prior year corrections adjustments, 143,207. That is the hold harmless legislation that was in the 22-23 budget. For districts, they are offering something ongoing to help districts with a soft landing if in fact there is declining population and students in California. But for charter schools, they are offering this hold harmless for just the 21-22 school year. So what we did is we compared your 19-20 enrollment and ADA rate and your 21-22 enrollment after basically after the pandemic. And if you had higher enrollment prior, what they're going to do is protect you for the loss of those students after the pandemic. If in fact that is truly after the pandemic, I don't even know anymore. But so that basically comes out to $143,000 that should be paid to SEBA around March of this year, of the coming year. So the rest of that 527,000, which is I think 384,000, is an increase due to the increased ADA as well as that COLA. If we scroll down a little more, we see federal revenue is 132,000. That's a true up of your remaining CARES Act funding, ESSER funding. Here's the biggie. If we go down to other state revenue, you see 1,357,583. There's two particular grants in there that I brought up at a previous meeting. One is Arts, Music, and Instructional Materials Block Grant, and the other one is for Learning Recovery. Both of those together are $1.3 million. Both of those have, I think one has until 2028 to fully encumber, and the other one is till 2029. These are restricted grants, and because of the technical accounting aspect, they're all going to be paid in full this year, 100%. And we take it as revenue. And what will happen is we will have restricted fund balance or restricted net assets for anything of those two grants unspent this year. And they will be chipped away over the coming years. And that will be clearer when I show a multi-year. But overall, that's where that 2,063,000 increase in revenue comes. So literally 2/3 of it is for those restricted discretionary block grants.
Paul, can I-
Paul?
Yes.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead, Mary.
Okay, so I know of those two grants, right, that are restricted in nature, but isn't the art and music discretionary? So it's considered restricted, but it's also discretionary?
Yes. Yeah. But it will be listed on your audit
Correct.
as a restricted net assets. Exactly. Yeah.
And just clarification, because I know in the last election, there was a proposition to allocate a percentage of the state budget to arts education. Does that grant have anything to do with that proposition?
I don't think so.
No, this is in addition to Prop 28. So those monies will be coming as well.
Wow.
Thank you, Mary.
You're
Save me. Okay, let's scroll down to the expenditures. So if you look basically at our overall compensation and benefits, it's basically flat. Some of the big swings you see are actually just reclassifications of positions. We had everybody in instructional aids, but yet some of them are classified subs. So you can see some of that getting stripped out, as well as clerical and technical staff. and some switches up in the certificated area. But overall, the increase is literally about $48,000 or somewhere in there. And the reason with all those other discretionary block grants that are coming in, we didn't put in corresponding expenditures. For one, you have several years to use them. And one's going to require a spending plan. To my knowledge, there's already a template out on the CDE website, which we'll talk about in a future meeting, I'm sure. But we really didn't have plans for all of those yet. So if we scroll down a little more, everything else is kind of pretty much stable. In particular, I wanted to show under books, supplies, and materials, you can see we had under 4310 materials and supplies. That tends to be instructional materials. But when we looked at what was happening, actuals, it was at 84,000, of which 63,000 was related to the purchase of student uniforms. So we split that out so Josh could track that separately. And you are collecting some revenues from students who have the ability to pay, and that is up under local revenue, which I think it's 24,000 currently. And that is local revenue, and it says specifically, it will say student uniforms. So we can watch how much you collect versus, what you had purchased in there. So we did, of course, increase that budget, but we also have a corresponding revenue line as well. We added to meals and events, textbooks and core curriculum. Nothing, I wouldn't call these material changes, especially given the changes in the revenue, but areas where Josh felt that there could be additional spending, or it was close, so we just decided to put a few dollars in there just to make sure we're covered. If we go down to outside services, there wasn't very much change in there. Janitorial services, we thought were trending a little high, so we pumped that up a bit. We can use ESSER funds for some of that as well. Mileage and reimbursements, of course, a lot of that is the cost of gasoline as well. And basically, that's about, we increased legal a bit. And Josh, if I'm not mistaken, was that because of the city council issue and you've retained a lawyer for help in that regard? Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. So bottom line there is, as we had mentioned before, if we scroll down all the way.
Oh, excuse me.
Yeah, there we go. Okay. So bottom line, we're contributing 2 million to our ending fund balance, which will then be 9,044,940, of which currently we're going to consider both those discretionary block grants unspent this year. And in a demo I'm going to show right after this, we'll show you how much is net restricted assets and why, how that multi-year looks. And you'll see that in a sec. Let's just touch on cash flow real quick. The last page, of course, cash flow is very solid. In addition, I mean, we look like we're going to end the year really healthy. Remember, those grants are being paid in full this year. 50% is coming November, December, and I think you've already received some of that. And the other 50% is going to be paid in May and June. That's $1.3 million just by itself. So anyway, 300 days cash on hand, 6.6 million. Either way, when you look at your overall, we're looking at 132 days in November on cash flow is clearly very strong. SEBA is well positioned to deal with, even if there's a coming recession, we are very equipped to deal with any potential LCFF deferrals or anything the state may do in the future, depending how the economy goes. So that is the first interim budget that we're presenting for your approval. Before the vote, we should show you the multi-year, just so I can show how that is going to be, how that restricted grants are being affected and what our presentation will show.
Let me pull it up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you see that?
I see the first interim cover page. Is that do we have the
The other one.
Oops, sorry.
the multi-year?
Yep, I just clicked on the wrong one.
Oh, there we go.
Okay.
Now, okay, the reason this was important for me to show is because scroll up just a bit. I just need to see one more line on the bottom.
Oh, scroll down. Yeah.
Yeah, there we go. Okay, so what I was trying to show here is if you look at the multi-year, we had this nice big gain and then 2 years of losses. Now, normally you'd show that to somebody and they say, well, I don't want a budget that's losing money. But if you look below the ending balance, you'll see I've separated out donor restricted net assets and unrestricted. And those two grants, if we assume that we don't have a spending plan yet and that they are both restricted net assets, donor restricted net assets at the end of the year, the purpose of those will be, I wasn't sure, it would be hard to strip out one-time spending from these budgets. So I wanted to give a presentation to show, even though there's a loss, if you look at your unrestricted net assets, which technically contributes to your reserves, that continues to increase while the spending on those grants slowly eats away at those restricted net assets. So those losses do not indicate a problem with the budget or structural financial issues, but rather it's just the accounting treatment of these discretionary block grants, which the guidance we've received from audit firms currently is we take those as revenue and then they will get chipped away over the next few years. Normally if I was to show that without that bottom part, some boards would look at it and go, we shouldn't budget to a loss. Well, we're not budgeting to a loss. We're just trying to account for these restricted discretionary grants. And that is the first interim presentation.
That's what one-time money does, right, Paul? It makes it look like it's bad when you see.
It does. And I come from corporate world where we
Mhm.
match revenues with expenditures over
Mhm.
time. Normally we defer that and make it flow consistently and evenly, which to investors makes it easier to read. But this is just a quirk of the nonprofit world at times. And
Mhm.
at the end of the year, the auditors, I have found them to be wildly inconsistent in the past year with certain other grants that have come out. So some auditors have flipped their feeling on how certain grants would be treated. So if they said, no, let's defer, then that would change the whole picture. Bottom
Mhm.
line is the money is coming in. It will be there for SABA to spend, whether it's parked on your balance sheet as a deferred revenue or in restricted net assets. The bottom line is SABA is healthy,
Mhm.
has cash, adequate cash, and those funds will be there to spend in accordance with their allowable terms.
Looks good.
Thank you so much. Mr. Jones, I thought you said something, but I think you're
Muted.
muted.
Oh, you missed all those intelligent comments that I was making.
Well, we'll
I'm-
just assume, we'll just go, okay, that was great. Thank you.
You could probably read my lips and see that I was asking if there were any other questions, and I didn't see anybody raising their hand. So is there a motion to approve the 2023 first interim budget and multi-year projection?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Javier.
Javier seconds.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? It passes unanimously. All four present board members approve, and the budget is approved. Thank you very much, Paul,
Thank you.
and happy holidays.
Happy holidays to you. I'm going to stick around in case there's questions, Josh, on the next item that was on your agenda.
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind just staying on for a few more
Yeah.
minutes. Okay,
And that would be the public schools audit.
that is correct.
And I think you told us that we didn't get an audit.
Yeah, well, we talked, when we met Friday, I just briefly updated you, but yeah, that is accurate. The due date for the audit in the state of California is December 15th. And I'm just showing the letter that we received today, SABA received today. But they basically request an extension. This year, you can see here, in 2002, the deadline was reverted back to the pre-pandemic requirement of December 15th, 2022. And basically what the letter goes on to say is that due to increased federal and state compliance audit requirements and personnel shortages that have caused a bottleneck, the audit is not ready by today's board meeting. We're very accustomed to always seeing this audit at the December board meeting, but that we're going to have to request an extension through our county office. I'll do that tomorrow morning. And this letter is requesting an extension through March 31st, 2023. And they're saying that reflects when CLA will have the capacity to complete the engagement with SABA.
Does that request for an extension go to, is that something that the superintendent can just sign off on, or does it have to take board action at the district level?
It will not require board action at PBUSD level, but I think they're just, I don't know what the county office will, the County Office of Education is the ones who review this, and I'm not sure what they'll say about that.
Does this delay go to the state? Does the state need to know about it? Because I thought for some reason the state needs to know about it, but
Yeah.
maybe that's what PVUSD does, so,
Yeah, it gets notified up through the chain of command.
okay.
Thanks, Paul.
I stuck around only because this was a bit disturbing. They've had the data, and I think it clearly states that they've had issues. There were a lot more compliance requirements this year. And we've had several clients where we are right up on the door and they are now requesting extensions with a week to go. This is not just a Sabre thing. Matter of fact, we did confirm that all the information requests we provided at least a month ago, I think end of October, if Ken worked on the audit and he's really diligent on these things. So I think it's really on the audit side. I just wanted to make sure everybody understood that, because to get that notice today, we were just frustrated.
Yeah, we've had to do this in the past. We did it one time in the past. I don't remember if it went to the state or not, but there was again issues at the audit firm. There was, and not bad issues. It was just
Now,
they
I-
had staffing issues and
There's-
some.
a lot for them to take into
Yeah.
account this year, and I think they misjudged how quickly they'd get through it.
Mhm. Yeah, there was a lot.
Would this situation spur us to consider taking our audit business somewhere else?
So I asked Paul that earlier. Yeah, because it's funny, we had a meeting in October, and just to clarify, I was like, all right, now we have, there's many submissions that you do for this, as Ken and I work closely with this, and Ken knows well, but and it was like, okay, we have everything, so we can begin testing, and that was mid-October. But I did ask DMS today, like, are they experiencing this with just CLA or other audit firms? And it sounds like it's a lot of audit firms are having this struggle. Paul, you want to expand on that?
Yeah, a lot of our clients use CLA. I've always liked CLA, but this is the second time in the last few years that we've had a bump in the road with them.
Mm,
They went through a merger, and that year when they went through the merger, there was a lot of issues, which was I've been through mergers. I understand that what that does. This year, I think it's fair to say that there are a lot of new federal and state requirements, CARES Act and all of these other grants. It's been a tough year on, for us to deal with them. We always seek guidance from these auditors. But, CLA has really reached out to many of our clients to delay or to request extensions. And I just want to make sure everybody understood. We did our job, Sabre did its job. I think they just misjudged what would be required to complete these audits this year.
I know we had a lot of, the federal compliance, because once you hit that 750,000 mark, I think is what it is
Yep.
you have to get all your federal dollars.
Your federal
audited.
single
So
audit, yeah.
it's another big chunk.
But I think not just the CARES Act, I think there was, we had the teacher effectiveness, we had a bunch of new grants that came out late.
Independent study, all of
Yeah.
that. stuff, yeah,
Yes, yeah.
all of that stuff.
And, the pandemic also affected all of us and these firms and all of these requirements in so many ways. And
Mhm.
we are still feeling the effects of it.
Yeah.
All right. Any other questions regarding the audit situation? Not hearing any, and there's nothing to approve, so we will leave that for the future, and hopefully the issues that are causing it will be resolved and we won't see them in the future. All righty. Now we get to closing items. Oh, and we're under an hour. That's
I
pretty
wanted to
good.
just put out there that our January board meeting is the 3rd. The 1st is a Sunday. 2nd is a Monday, and 3rd is a Tuesday, and we're always the first Tuesday of the month. So just put that on everybody's calendar. We need to have a quorum. I'll send out an email too, but I want to make sure that we've got quorum on January 3rd when we're planning to have our January board meeting.
Josh and I discussed this, and since the first is on a Sunday,
Mhm.
we're assuming that people's winter vacations or winter activities will end on that Sunday, and that everybody's going back to work on Monday. Does that having a meeting on January 3rd pose a problem for any of the board members?
Nope.
Gershom, you're on mute.
Sorry, give me 1 second. I'm double checking. January, what was it? Third?
Third.
Third.
No, I think I'm good.
Great. Any other items that people would like to see on the agenda in January? Not hearing any. Can I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Not hearing any opposition. The motion passes to adjourn the meeting. I hope everybody has a wonderful holiday season and enjoys time with family and friends. And we will gather again in the new year, and hopefully Santa will bring us a positive result at the city council meeting in January, we hope.
Mhm.
Josh, any last words?
No, you ended it well.
All right.
Feliz
Thanks, Dave.
Navidad.
Feliz Navidad.
Happy holiday.
Happy holidays to everyone. Thank you so
Take
much.
care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.